Hey guys, I'm back. This is just the funness of being in other countries and the Wi-Fi and stuff. So I'm back, and I don't even know how long we've been going, guys, but I wanna bring some clarity then to, I've shared a lot about my experience with medicine, what medicine actually does, a lot of the lies, the illusions, the things to be aware of. And mostly, as what I was finishing on and saying is what we can see the result that is coming from in our life. And guys, if you're jumping back on with me, thank you. Let me know you guys can still hear me okay. Is sound coming through okay still? Brenda, can you let me know? Give me a thumbs up or something if you can still hear me okay. I'm gonna assume that we're still good. And I'm sure everyone's gonna be jumping back on because for whatever reason I got kicked off and we got to jump back on and join. So hopefully I'll get a thumbs up. If sound is good? Yes, yay, Kirsten, she was in the jungle with me in Colombia as we're talking about all this beautiful stuff. Was just messaging with her this morning, this beautiful, glorious being. And this is what I'm talking about, guys, high-level leaders that were willing to go dive in at another level and had such massive shifts in their life and become, I know that they can affect so many more people. So Kirsten was one of the beautiful divine beings that I got to work with personally and went down to the jungles in Colombia after doing Goddess Revolution. So we've gone deep and we've gone into the depths of this. And what I want you guys to hear from everything that we shared is that what really happens as a result of you moving forward in your life is not only, obviously, like I said, the cleansing of the traumas. Thank you, Kirsten, for letting me know that. You can hear me okay, because I'm just going. So clearing the traumas, the experiences, your cells, all those things. But what happens is now, operating this place where all that stress is removed from your system and your body is you're relaxed. Okay, and guys, ego is actually a connection to your nervous system, where it is just an overwhelmed nervous system, and again, no lack of life force energy, that shallow breathing, that there's no presence with yourself, with breath, with what's happening in your life, with emotions, etc. So your system becomes relaxed, your cells become cleansed, you've leaned into this healing, you release all that stuck energy, you find resolution with all those traumas and all those experiences. And what happens from now operating this place, like the Ascended Master Saint Germain said, seeing yourself through the divine mind, which means I now do not operate from suffering, I actually am in oneness with bliss. And being in that place, what happens? We trust the process of life. Because we know, seeing ourselves through the divine mind, and the bigger picture of it all, there is no resistance to anything. There is no separation to anything. We become so connected to everything and emitting this light body and activating light from within us that all we can continue to receive is greater. All we can continue to receive is the next level of our evolution. And as I shared, just kind of throughout this whole experience, some of my experiences with plant medicine and, the journeys with them and going to greater and greater levels of ecstasy and sensuality and bliss and luxury and knowing I'm fully worthy of being supported. And even this year, guys, if you look at how I said, even from the 1 year of starting with plant medicine to next year, how much my business and everything catapulted to then becoming the millionaire mentor and going, up leveling in so many ways, to then this last year being evolved to going more into being a spiritual mentor and literally going to the next level of absolute freedom for myself, which I can't teach others to until I'm willing to lead myself. Thank you, Kirsten. I love you. It did. It changed your life and mine radically, and it was so awesome to see you in the jungles doing all the fun stuff that we did, which is a whole nother one we could go off on. All these bring smiles to my faces, but my faces, yes, brings smiles to my face as well. And so really, even this last year, me aligning to such giving myself permission to have absolute freedom. How can I teach anyone else absolute freedom unless I'm willing to go there? And so it was not just doing the things, again, in the mental programming and what we think, it's actually continuing to tune to our highest levels of consciousness, opening up more of our gifts and our abilities, as I was called to just, have complete freedom this entire year and only creating from my essence and being called to go all over the world wherever I feel called to serve, nothing on my schedule, and going to the depths in deeper ways with DNA activation and cellular cleansing and, spending time with enlightened masters in the Himalayas, all this stuff activating even more in me that allowed the next level of my consciousness and ability to then stand and share it so that we all get to see what's available. Guys, I couldn't have had this perception and this way of operating from just from the programs and the limiting behaviors and things that I had learned in my humanness. We get to actually open up. What this really does is it opens up our multi-dimensional capabilities as well. Activates our DNA that we held dormant and we forgot and is just waiting to be awakened. You hear this, that DNA, we're using less than 5% of our brains, or like 5% of our DNA, and that they consider all the rest junk DNA. That's all bullshit. That is literally just bullshit of, again, we're talking about people who are watching TV 6+ hours a day, and they shut down all of their DNA, and we're only told stories instead of you continuing to activate and awaken through your experience the DNA that opens up more of your gifts and your capabilities. So my experience has been, there's just, so many stories that I could share of my own experience, but, I'm sure Kirsten could share even, she just did. It changed my life radically. I will say that every single client I've ever had that I've taken through plant medicine or guided to plant medicine has had a massive life transformation from it. I myself have. I took my kids with me when they chose to do it when they were 9 and 12. And then the next year, Skylar flew down after I took a group of last year? Was it last year? I think it was last year. I took what ended up being my group of guys, some of the most badass men that are in the world, that all went down with me as my clients and that I was working with. And every single one of those guys got to open up their feminine and literally go from being massive producers to producing at a whole nother level with ease and grace and fun and giddiness. And now some of them, very high proponents of using plant medicine, and have continued to go back down to the jungle and to open up their ways of exploring with more. So I'm not gonna dive too much more into, I feel like we've gone really deep, and I'm gonna do a whole nother live show or a whole nother show on my show around more of the depths and maybe share some more of my experiences. But what I can say, guys, is, as I've shared with you, is that I've healed my body, I've healed sicknesses and injuries, I've massively up-leveled my ability to be worthy, to align to my worthiness, to be able to receive, healed the traumas and all the things that were keeping me from sensuality and the juiciness of life and the pleasure and the bliss and the joy and even the luxury codes. That's just been my experience. And what I will share that was so powerful to me is even seeing my oldest, my son Skylar, how he really dealt with both my kids as I taught them, as we went through the journey of consciousness, I taught them to fully be themselves. And they both dealt with bullies because they literally chose to just be themselves. And I remember Skylar, his intention, and this is why I want to share with you guys more on the awareness now for this last part of this, about when it's safe to use, how to use it, just some of the things that create a lot of the fear and the stories out there. And so with Skylar, when my kids chose in on it, and I asked them their intentions, Skylar said to me, "Mom, I want to be able to fully express myself and not ever worry again about what other people think or bullies." And after our journey and our first experience in the jungle doing ayahuasca, Skylar came out of that. Skylar had such an amazing experience of self-expression. And he came out of that, and then we went to the school that I found a school in Columbia, and we went to the school to teach the kids, and both my boys got to teach the kids. And Skylar literally was like, "I'm going to teach them about self-expression and how to love themselves and to not worry about bullies." And because that had all come through him in his experience, as he saw it all perfect and he saw it through different eyes, that it didn't even bother him anymore. He went back, and from that day forth, Sky literally has not cared about bullies. He's not given a rat's ass about bullies, where he suffered with that and struggled with that, and it was part of his own conscious journey for years. And after his experience with Aya, he literally saw it through a different lens, and he just evolved in such a bigger divinity of himself and an expression of himself. And that was such a beautiful gift to see. And like I said, so all of this has been also part of my journey of seeing through a different lens. I'm a completely different parent, from seeing the bigger picture of things and not having stories or trying to control or hold on to things. It's like literally allowing our greatest evolution. And so I want to talk about the last couple things that I want to wrap up on, is to give you guys some feedback of, if you are feeling the call to medicine, when it is, like, what to be aware of. And this is the thing, when should you use plants? When should you dive into? I gave you a list of the different types of plant medicines and psychedelics in the beginning. Most of them I've used. There's some that I haven't, some that I never felt called to. There's some that called me again to return and go back to and a deeper dive. And then there's some that I only did once or twice, or, you know, so it's like ayahuasca, I've done very deep levels with and have gone, you know, and for me, and this is where I'll share, where first off, it's, do you feel the call? Is it calling to you? Are you feeling the call to your wholeness, your healing? You know, is it coming into your awareness? It might be that you're here for a reason. It's coming into your awareness because you know you deserve to operate in a place of your divinity, to operate in a place of you having a life experience that is, guys, I want to say, like, most people are trying to find the meaning of life. I call bullshit. I don't believe people are trying to find the meaning of life. I believe they're trying to experience the meaning of life. Just chill with that for a second, okay? Breathe into that. You're not looking, again, through a mental, logical, I gotta find this meaning, what's my purpose? Again, that's all coming from this mind that you need to be doing something else and should be showing up in a certain way and need to accomplish something so that you're validated and you're enough and you're worthy. All that is very scared little girl, little boy fear, right? You're actually seeking the experience of your life to give your life meaning. You're seeking the experience to give you meaning. That is what life is. We are here to experience life. Like, and me being aligned to peace is my highest priority. Living in absolute play, what feels good, what's in flow. My experience is my purpose. My experience of life is my priority. My experience of life is my gift. That's why you'll hear me say over and over again, life is my grandest adventure. I am here for the adventure of life. I don't have to do shit. I'm here for me. And guess what? By me elevating and operating from this essence, what am I doing for humanity? I'm holding the codes of the new earth. I'm operating from the new highly evolved being frequency. I am literally being the new human. Because there is no separate, and I still manifest like a motherfucker, if I'll put it in the terms that I used to, where it's like, produce and create, because what wants to come through me is coming through at this highly evolved state that just gets to be given to the world and manifest at such a higher degree. So when you use medicine is when you feel called to it. It's not, that's why for me also, when I would take people to the jungle or do things, it was people like Kirsten. You know, Rockin' Life as a high-level leader, had done a lot of work, but had gone through, there was a background of knowing how to work through things and process through things. Like, everyone had to be in my programs in the past, because it was like, I didn't want to take anyone down to the jungle. And what most people want to do, and this is where I say using it unconsciously, is that you want to run to it as a solution. You hear all these things, these great things about plant medicine, psychedelics, etc., and you're like, all right, I'm gonna go do this thing for healing, just like if you were gonna go try to use a different substance, but then you're looking at it as a quick fix. I'm gonna go do this thing for healing, and what will happen is every single person that I've ever had an experience with has had a massive transformation, but most people, and this is where I say you wanna be aware of how you do this, is that they go have a huge transformation, and like a cleansing and a clearing, and then what happens, they go back to their old life, again, with all those things that I said are imprinting your environment. They don't know how to act differently, how to operate differently, how to behave differently, how to think differently, how to feel differently, how to allow this integration and embodiment of this new wisdom. Again, the medicine shows you where you get to go. The medicine does all this beautiful work with you and then allows you to go, cool, now you get to go back and, like that tuning fork, harmonize your life with the aspects that are out of congruency with the being that you choose to be, and this divinity code, or this consciousness and this frequency that you are. That's what the medicine gives you the opportunity to do. If you just go back to your life and you don't do shit, you recreate the same shit. Okay? And this is why I was like, I will not take people to do medicine until I know that they're in it to do the process. Because it's not let's go just do this and then you're fixed and you're healed. That'd be the same bullshit game in spiritual bypassing as trying to go use any other type of drug or tune out and do something else. It means you get to come back and you get to embody with it. You get to integrate the new patterns and behaviors and the new belief systems and things. So for me, it's very much always was even as I've created my Ascension Adventures to be where people could go down and go through these experiences, so they were fully taken care of and supported in safe, sacred spaces, etc. without me, It was, are you ready for it? Are you feeling the call to it? What's the journey and the work that you've done? And making sure they had either my programs or something that was teaching them how to move through their emotions and how to process things. It's like the 5 steps that I teach. So, you know, it's knowing that you get to take these steps to integrate it into your life and body. And that's the biggest thing I want you to hear. It's not go do medicine. It's part of your healing journey to do that. So, and know that it's also part of that is that it's like coming together in the right point of your life. It's like the right medicine you're called to at the right point in your life, which is almost like a destiny point to allow you to go into it. See, Mark who just joined us, he just got back from Colombia. He went with me last year with a group of the guys that I was referring to. And then he's even taken some of his peeps now to do his clients and people to do plant medicine work because he knows what an impact it is. And he even messaged me yesterday, I think it was Mark, that was saying, he can't believe that was only the massive amount of change he's had in his life, and that was only last March, I believe, was when we went down to Colombia and he got introduced to plant medicines. It's like such a massive shift will happen, but it is very important, as he's saying, integration. So that's the other thing that I want you to hear is that it's not only are you called to it, are you ready to receive it, to be able to go in and know that it gets to be a very sacred place, a sacred space, which I'll talk about, but it's like, it's not necessarily like one time and done. There's some things, like I did combo a couple times in cleansing, haven't felt called to combo again. Ayahuasca has been a deep part of my journey, and I haven't felt called to do Aya now since I went with those guys last March. But yet just recently this summer, I was called to do psilocybin and DMT. That's been a big part of my journey. I've done LSD. I've done so many of them, and some that I haven't, that I never felt called to. And then since I've opened up so many capabilities and things, it's not like I need to go back again. What I'm saying is you do the journey and you do the work with it, and you have those abilities now. It's not to keep running back, but it's when you feel the next call to it. And as I shared how just this last summer, in what I was called to do was a massive healing of the feminine masculine, opening up sensuality codes to a whole nother level. And then even in my own work with Hape, as I'll do cleansing and clearings for myself, with my clients in ceremony, you know, I utilize that as a very sacred medicine, and that's, Hape is legal. Hape is like peyote, or it's a tobacco with herbs. So it's like knowing when to use it. It's not something that I use often. It's when I feel called and I know I have something coming up and some core wounds, and I process through it, and then I'll utilize the medicine to support me in taking me to a greater context. It's like all my body becomes light body, and I literally can cleanse the cells. And so, you know that there's a dance with it, that it's when you feel called to it and it's using the right medicine, and these are the things you can kind of lean into, but know that it's not that you're just going to keep going back to the medicine. Like I said, I haven't felt called to do Aya for a while, but I felt called to do some other things when it came up, and other than that, it's been like, where am I filling in the gaps in between? How am I integrating and how am I embodying this into my life? So what's really important to know, most above all, is environment. I have only done medicine in the most sacred, safe spaces. And all the horror stories I ever heard were not in a safe space with, so it's like, I know there's, and all things are available for all people. You can choose whatever feels good to you and serves you, but I know there's a lot of spaces where people now, shamans or people that maybe aren't as connected to operating from the highest alignment or integrity with the plants, etc., can add things to things and might, like, this is why I only work with the people that I know are deeply trained and rooted in this, as well as the sacred spaces in this. Because there is people that will go to an experience where there's 100 other people, and what happens is I'm like, I just can't even imagine for myself choosing in on an experience where there's like, literally you're releasing your shit and then you're just gonna be doing a trading the shit show with other people. And there's just the space not being sacred. So I wanna stress how important the environment is, okay? I know, like Kirsten wouldn't even consider doing it in a different space. And so these guys, Kirsten and Mark, both have been with me down to the jungles, into where it is literally sacred grounds. That ground was actually prepared for over 7 to 10 years before they let anyone even enter into it. And I won't go into the depths, but it's like working with a shaman who, she's in her 70s and she's been doing it since she was 7. And it's like sacred healing space where you enter that space and it's protected. Nothing else can enter into that space. And only working with a few people, we have this like small group of people who we know exactly where they're at with their consciousness, what they've gone through. They all know how to move and process things. We're all being supported. The environment is highly what makes the result. Okay, I mean, and like I said, and several of the people I even shared, it was Jason Silva who said the environment is very important because, well, in his words, it's the importance of controlling the environment because you get to hang with the people whose company patterns these. So meaning, like for me, I was only going to go into medicine if I wasn't just doing my own experience with a shaman or with, like when I in San Diego recently this summer when I was with my girl Amber and, at the temple of Wholeness and where we did a deep dive with psilocybin and DMT, it was like me and her. It's either one-on-one or with a few people where it's very sacred space because you know exactly, where they're at. And it's holding that field in that space for that to allow that to happen. I can't, and yet I know there's many things out there where people just, I heard about this little thing and I'm gonna go do Aya for the evening, with 50 other people or 100 other people, and it's just at somebody's house. That makes me sick to my stomach. But I also know that that's totally okay for someone to experience if that's what they choose. I just want you to be aware of, this is where I've heard a lot of scary stories from people of some really scary experiences that they've had and the energy around it because it's not necessarily a very safe, sacred space. So I just want you to be aware of knowing the importance of what's gonna happen there. Where now notice also the reason the environment will create so much more of a result. Remember how in the beginning I shared with you how a lot of times I'm in total control. And I could shut it down if I wanted to. But I'm always working on, and I've shared with my clients how to breathe and expand into more, how to stay with the medicine, how to get as much out of it as possible. And so notice the reason why this becomes possible to have such a deeper healing and an experience. It's like my experiences just kept continuing. In fact, I remember Kirsten, who's still on here watching, I remember how we went into, I don't remember even what time we started, but most of the peeps ended Aya within about 4 to 6 hours, which is typical and average. Mine are like 10 to 15 hours sometimes. And I remember I was in it all night long still through my journey, and it's like you'd think I'd be totally done, and I would breathe and expand into how much more could I receive, and a whole nother level of healing would happen. And over and over. And I remember traipsing out of the jungle at 8 in the morning and Kirsten's house was on the top of the hill outside the sacred grounds where we did our ceremonies. And she comes out and she sees me traipsing up the hill. Kirsten, I don't know if you remember this. And she's like, are you just coming out? And I was like, yeah. But the reason I could go so deep is because of the environment. Now, I want you to think about this. This is why it's, it's so important because the environment it's like being so in alignment with the way that you utilize the medicine as well as the environment as your sacred ally, that it opens up a solid, safe container for you to relax your system even more and to know that it's okay to release. It's totally okay you're held in unconditional love. You remember it so good, right? And you guys will attest to this space where we've gone for Aya very much just felt like the most sacred, safe space with the people who held the space for us, the healers and the shamans and the family that ran that have done it their whole lives. It's like we all fell in love with them. They're like our family. And this is just one of the spaces that we've used. And obviously I've done lots of other medicines and a lot of other work, and it's why I'm opening up the space in the temple next March to be able to do this with people who want to go deep in this way. Yet it's all about the environment. And it's the sacred space, it's the people who hold that space, it's the people aligned in integrity with how they use the medicine. It's you being ready for the medicine and feeling called to the medicine. So you feel safe to unravel there, to allow everything to be unraveled, remembering that softness that happens and allowing that cleansing, that clearing and that moving of things. So where I've heard more of the trauma stories, the fear stories, is people don't feel safe, and they're like, what's happening, and this is weird, and and they don't even know how to actually experience the medicine and return to that wholeness or have that experience. And so the other thing I want you to recognize is also from the people that you're with, meaning those who hold the space for it. So for instance, with my girl Amber, with us doing this it's actually called the Journey to Wholeness is the retreat. It's a remembrance retreat. And through my Ascension Adventure company that we're doing in San Diego in March, where we're using psilocybin and DMT. And again, guys, even my own journeys I've done with psilocybin had massive deep healings, like I shared with you on my next layer of falling in love with myself. So it's like using the right medicine in the right space with the right people. What happens is, from those people that are holding the space, like for instance Amber and the deep dive work that she's done, and again I have videos and other things if you're more interested in this, her abilities and her skills and capabilities is almost like able to help remove the stuff out of your system. And receiving the essence, not only that, the gift of the support and the allowing as much healing as possible, but also the gift of their essence and the codes that they carry. So Amber, if you watch the video that we did together, you tell she's just like the most sensual, divine, juicy being. I picked up so many sensuality codes from being around her. I picked up her essence. So yeah, like Zoe's saying, the people in the space is super important. And the people that you're working with is super important, because you pick up it's almost like a mirror of neurons that get translated. Again, just like we're receiving intelligence from the plants, you're actually receiving the intelligence and the codes from the people. So it's really important to work with the people who have the results that you want, or have done the journey that you're looking to. It's like who you surround yourself, again, the company of that. Operating those patterns of people. It's why I created the Best Life Tribe, and why I have this space for the community of people that are like, all aligning to operating in their best life. It's like a safe space that is so important. So, if anything, I hope that, as you might feel called to this or dive into this, is like making all these things sure that these things are in alignment for you, that you truly do get to have a clear intention of going in there and be prepared to do it. And all these things are just so important. It is such a sacred, divine ally. But as you hear from everything we've shared, it's such a gift. It is such an incredible gift. So I feel like I've shared a shit ton, you guys. I don't even know how long we've gone, but we're on the second live part to this. And so if you guys have any other questions for me, please ask. I most likely am going to be doing an audio training for my show to go into some other aspects of this, so that can be available. If you guys are interested in the Remembrance Retreat. Now again, this is actually including, so we're doing DMT and psilocybin. It's actually a span over a week, but it's 3 days on, 3 days off. So it's like there's a deep dive with only a small group of people, myself and Amber. And we actually, guys, we decided to create this because this year for me, the journey has so much become about how many more people I can affect. And so it went from like wanting to coach people at $1 million level one-on-one to how much more of the masses can I support in this journey of what wants to come through my essence. And that's why the shows and some of the other things that I'm doing that are just being able to affect so many more people. And I saw this also from my last experience, was like, I know so many people don't go work with plants because there's so much fear around it. Where do I go? How do I know it's a safe space? And that's why I created Ascension Adventure. So even if you're like, yeah, I'm someone who wants to go, down to Colombia, we have a system for that. If you're someone who wants to go to India and maybe not and go through different neural pathways, we have a system for that. Yet there's something to being held in the space and knowing that we can hold your hand and you can go to a space that allows that. This I'm super excited about because we're not having to go out of the country. We're not having to go somewhere else. We literally have a space. It's a temple. It's all legal to be able to be in the Temple of Wholeness and be able to go deep dive with these medicines. And we, not only my gifts of we're going to deep dive into your integration and the breakdown of breakthrough patterns, not only from the medicine, but then getting to see how we get to do integration around it. Amber's gifts and abilities of actually working with medicine for so many years. She's worked with so many clients and so many like high level people that you would recognize the names of some of the most famous businesses in the world as well. Working with the presidents and the CEOs and the people that are going diving deep into their healing to expand their consciousness. So she's a divine sister of mine, and we got to do this when I was in San Diego. I felt called to do it, and I got to stay there and was like, oh my gosh, like so many more people require this. And so this is a whole nother, it's one that I haven't offered support around before with the DMT and the psilocybin. It's something that Amber's done a lot of work around. I've done a lot of my own personal journeys with and taken my clients to do, but haven't offered a retreat getting to go into this. And so we just felt so called to create the space coming up next March where it'll be a group we'll get to go through where again the integration days with us and then the days off and getting to go through this process. So if you guys want more information on that, again, I know the right people will always be like drawn to it and come and show up. We actually, the moment I announced it, which was back when I was in San Diego, we filled up the whole thing. So we actually opened up a whole nother group that gets to go through. And this is like, I'm barely announcing it again. I think I mentioned it like last week and barely putting it out there again because it's coming up in March and we want to be able to, we opened up to be able to have more people get to go through this. So if that calls to you, then we have, you know, other links and information on that, and I'm happy to send, just message me personally. And if anything, I hope that if you're in a place where you're suffering with your body healing, injuries, sickness, past traumas, that you now see there's so many other things available for you. Even if you start with, you know, like I said, there's energy work, there's breath work, there's other things as well. But the ability that what's truly available to us with the plants as our divine allies, and connecting to our divine consciousness and the higher consciousness that we are, what's available. And I'm sure you could ask any of these amazing beings that jumped on here too to listen, that have actually experienced it as well, experienced it with me as well. And just know that you're worthy of living in a space of bliss and flow and peace and ease. And we are the only ones responsible for our own suffering. From the thoughts and the emotions that we're thinking and all these things in our system, we can keep doing the same thing and keep staying in that, or we can choose to lean in to those wounds. Remember, the wound is where the light enters you. And the cave that you're avoiding, you might be like, oh, I don't really want to go into that stuff. It feels so scary. It feels scary. And what the cave that you're avoiding going into is actually the cave that leads to the treasure and, you know, moving through on the other side, the light and that bliss paradise world that you find. It's like entering into, you know, that movie where it's like a scary dark cave and you, find a whole new world on the other side. Literally and truly, it is the cave that will bring your greatest light. So leaning into yourself and learning to find all those things inside you that still get to be loved. It's the journey that we're all on. It's just returning back to our oneness with ourselves, our oneness with everything, the wholeness, and returning to that feeling of our wholeness, which is knowing that if anything is in the way of that, it's just what else gets to be loved and healed. So I love you guys. Thank you for joining me and playing with me through this whole big journey. And again, if you have any other questions for me, just message me. And I love seeing my peeps that I've had these amazing experiences with. I love you guys so much. So enjoy the rest of your day.